Gombalana, Hakanana, Nieto. Chicago.
The prayers on page number 10. Lama la yazun che wo la yazun che wo che la che wo yen la yazun che wo san ye che na zo ye cho na la Chanjo bado dane yazo je taye jenzo je nanje dola benje sanje dovarsho sanje che danzo je chonam la Chanjo bado dane jazo je Daye jenzo je Sonam je Dola penje sanje dobar sho Sem jen ta Dewa gandhi judan temper juji Sem jen tam je dunga Dunga je judan dawar juji Sem jen tam je dunga me Damin dawara juji Sem jen tam je niran cha Nidan dawe danyon la ne wa juro je Sem jen tam je wa dan dewe ju dan denbar ju je Sem jen dunga dan dunga je ju dan dawar ju je Sem jen Dunga me be dewa da men da war ju ji sem jen ta ni ran cha da ni dan da ta nyo la ne war ju ro je sa je bo je ju ja me do da re ra le je ni de jen ba de Sanje jando mi de bo wa ye Dogo nam da shen la jo bar shu Yi dang gu ro rana Kame ya da ya me. In English, on page number 11, I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit created this practice, Buddhahood, all sentient beings. All sentient beings enjoy happiness and causes. All sentient beings all sentient beings become joyful. All sentient beings are feel attachment and anger. This compound mountain perfume, strong wind flower, Mount Meru, encircled by the four continents. surmounted by the sun and the moon. I visualize this Buddha field and offer it. Living beings enjoy the pure land. Ida Olo Kameyadas.
다음에 속이 정말 전에 다시대로 쉬었던 냠당수 다가 정리 준지 려 당보기에 고래마다 움직이면 주기.
Good morning, actually good afternoon. So welcome and thank you for joining me in this afternoon's Dharma talk on Shantideva's Bodhisattva's way, guidance to the Bodhisattva's way of life. I will continue the chapter 1 and start where we have left in last time.
다 가자디게 주도라 그랬으나네 선수 선된도 되나 나바니 스시에서 선수 몸베 선다는 선진지 거니에노 로얼도 동조이 시라지다 키워 대신 키윈더네지 시라르지 시월샤스다 단디 선주지 심세데 가정마와서 다 오토 지역의 선주지 심세데라 안에 나시 가리오레스나네 남바니스 시샤데 제 안에 몸바 선주지 선다 안에 주거 선주지 심이 오레스 다 디니 간데레스나 로런도 동조이 시라지다 히월다 대신 키윈더네지 시라르지 히월샤 지역이 몸비 센스야데 다 가르스나 벨렌잖아 아주 미지파네 타랑부지는 루기나 안에 소수 컴번 나로라 다 라나 마치비 갑들라네 아 사제들은 루기 선비 선바지다 안에 미디파 랑칼 치네 컴번 동족을 샤워시네 랑칼을 드르스비 갑스 안에 샤워를 니스 슈바레 네 디갑그 안에 사제들은 루기 시에기 니차로 컴번 너나 요 미디다 실로를 드르스비 니차로 삼로 너나를 그래요스나 아 사제들은 루기 시에기 삼로지니까 집을 요리데 yana jude drone dobi samba zanchida jude anan drone shawala nisi shuba dindare dewana singi momba sanji simsia de ane dana azuda jan sinje tanji jitande ane zobi sanji sala drone siagi momba zamji jiba sanji simsia de zange momba zamayiba soso rangi zobi sanji kompon toyaga tapdi ane 파선적인 년에도 주번년에라네 니스 존심비 니스 주심비 갑지 네고 선지 처계와래 니차로 가르스나 조비 상지 살라 드론도비 somebody 진성이 말라 지대 드론도바 zan다 지대 조비 샤올라 니스 시심바 오 딘지데 딘다서 몸바 상지 센다 주거 상지 센스야데 오 디리 잡여래 somebody.
Okay. So if you have a copy of your translation, please go to page 20 and verse 15. Here it says, in brief, this spirit of awakening is known to be of two kinds. The spirits of aspiring for awakening and the spirit of venturing towards awakening. If you recall, in last time, we have discussed about the essential, the core of this discussion, that is the awakening mind, or bodhicitta, technically. So what is the bodhicitta, and what is awakening mind? We have talked about, right? So now let's assume we know the basic characteristics the value, the functionality, the meaning, and the great importance of the awakening mind itself. So now, here, in verse 15, it teaches us about the classifications of bodhicitta. So, based on the general description of the bodhicitta, here, now we have to deal with the classification or the categorization of the bodhicitta. Like the text says in here, essentially bodhicitta can be divided into two kinds or two forms. The one is the spirits of aspiring for awakening, another is the spirits of venturing towards awakening. So one might say there's two kinds of awakening mind, and so awakening mind that which is aspiring for awakening, and another is venturing towards awakening. And what is the difference then between these two bodhicitta? You can see that in terms of the contents or the actual meaning of the bodhicitta, both the aspiring, the spirits of aspiring to awakening and the spirits of venturing towards awakening are same. So they both share the same meaning or same value. That is attend Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. So it is a mind, it is it is the strong and essential spiritual belief, and that is aimed to attain the Buddhahood and for the sake of all sentient beings. So therefore, even though the spirits of aspiring for awakening and the spirits of venturing towards awakening sound like there are two kinds, but essentially, as far as the essence of these two different awakening minds is concerned, there are no differences. Both are same. However, the differences being made, like here in the verses 16, it says, just one perceives the differences between the person who yearns to travel and a traveler, so do the learned recognize the corresponding differences between those two. So let's take an example and suppose that there are two kinds of individual. Both of them are aimed to take a long trip, a long a distance journey. So as far as the goals and the purpose, right, and are concerned. So the person who stayed at home and had their mind or generated a strong desire, a wish, aspiration, and said to himself or herself, say, I want to take this long journey and reach the distance destiny. So the person A, who stayed inside the house, who made such a mind and doing kind of a preparational thing, who haven't yet started the journey itself, right? So that person is, we can say, is resembled the person who is the form or the first kind of a bodhicitta, that is the aspiration for awakening, right? Or the spirits of aspiration for awakening. Why? Because this person is still at home, who is aspired, who has this strong intention and aimed wish to take this distance journey and reach the distance, reach the destiny. But the person B, right, here is the one who not only made, compared to the one who stays at the house making the mind, made a mind and doing the preparation work, who is the one actually on the path, on the way. He is physically like walking towards that very goal, the destiny. So this person's like a physical exercise, a physical activity, and such as like take a step forward, right, one by one, and then that very action, that very person's the mind and plus the practice itself is resembled the second form of bodhicitta or awakening mind. That is the spirits of venturing towards awakening. Right? So yes, so both of them are important, but we have to know that the differences that the one is just made mind who haven't yet actually physically and arise and left home and put him or herself on the actual road, right? Meaning that he or she just made a mind, but haven't yet engaging in the actual practice of the practice, and that leads him or her to the state of enlightenment. That's all.
다들 뒤오라 상주 몸배 생에는 콜신제의 친종요 저들집의 생선도 소나지 정종화메스 리게스 아니 몸바 상지지 샘시어디 몬생기 파용디 당아주게 몸바 상지지 샘시어디 지워이나 갈레레스나 아니 상주 몸배 생에는 콜신제의 친종요 성디 몸바 상지지 샘데 지워이나 코로나 네위체 다다마주다 이제는 네위체 안에 갈레스나 파용 안에 친구 정글에 안에 고치 레벨 진정요 저들 집에 선선도 소나 정상 정화 메시 몸바 상지지 샘스야데 안에 세제 시행기 동단에 조배 상지지 공부지 토나 삼바테 와서 참아라는 고 냠듯이 총요래 덴디 집어 잠지 아니 가리세나 지바 senje 지바 나신게 아니 지 소남데 좀 맞춰본 종야기 소나 좀 맞춰본 종야기 딘리기 지바 senje 지바 나신게 파용 친구지 해드그 말이에요 이나요 몸바 senje 지바 디기 아니 단디링 와서 소소기 뭐지 초원으로라 아니 디그 파용 자체모 저거 자체모 아니 소소라네 디치 몸부지 용어데 되지게 이나다 오늘 그런 게 파연 대응체 송거래야 송거래.
So now verse 17 it says although the result of the spirits of aspiration aspiring for awakening is great within the cyclic circle of existence, it is still not like the continual state of merits of the spirit of venturing. So now the text is trying to show its audience, us, help us to understand, to see the distinctions between the aspiration, the spirits aspiring for awakening, and the venturing awakening. So basically, there's two kinds of awakenings, right? So according to the text, the spirits of aspiring for awakening has its own a great benefits. So, for example, prior to the liberation and or attainment of the nirvana, as long as you are still in this the circle of existence or cyclic existence, the samsara, and if you generate and the spirits of aspiring for awakening, right? Wishing mind, wishing bodhicitta. So if you generate the wishing bodhicitta, or the spirits of the spirits of aspiring for awakening, what happened is so for the like here in the world, in our day-to-day life. So those of you, whoever has generated working on the wishing bodhicitta, wishing spirits of aspiration for awakening, he or she is naturally accumulating a great deal of merits, and whereby, so because of the magnificent, the unspeakable spiritual qualities and the powers and benefits of the wishing bodhicitta, spirits of aspiring for awakening, so you will get the qualities and or the benefits in your day-to-day life here, like now, like in our day-to-day life. What happens is you will feel so inspired, so motivated, and so you will feel that something is sacred and great. The matters a great matters a great deal of meaning, and so give you a sense of a purpose and a sense of direction. So it will help you to, and a very sort of altruistic person. But if you compare to the person who actually, right, like we talked about, to take the journey, who is actually left home and on the way to walking towards the awakening, state of awakening, the enlightenment, meaning he or she is physically undertaking the enterprise of the spirits of venturing, right? Then the person A, his or her practice of the bodhicitta, which is a wishing bodhicitta. So if you consider about look at it from the perspective of the merits and the outcome and the inspiring power, inspirational power, and so on and so forth, you will see it's the merits and the positive benefits that a person who remain wishing or wish to do so is not as great or as the powerful, and as the second person or the person who actually undertaken the spirits of awakening itself.
다때네 강내 송대 신자가 타이르 버루스 모도바이 신지스 세대야 돌랑지고 때네 송대 녀로간 범위 제정 소나시 이점에 잡을 담아시 나가년 버렸던 종 센디기 가리 송바레스나 지바 신지치 파용 Jiba Sinji Payo said, Gone is on the Sinjaga Tire the Revisers. Ta so Garisana Jiba Sinji Gabga Tachi Kabla Yamling Zode and a person to Gunyalend. Ta Jazzy Sanchez and Way, Jovala Hoyadere. Dendi Yamli Jivali Sonde, Gone is on the Sinjaga Tire the Revisers, that's all. Sinja Taiwade and a Dingali Troya Cheto. Modoba is Sinjis, send the out launcher was in Dazo. That data was sinking with cheater, Sandon to Niji, Lotele Naya Document, say ye. The Jig is Simpson with Gone, send the out launcher was that data when Juba Sanji sent it, so get Nisan Yaling got somebody Sunday. That din is on the Garesana, Nilokan. Palmage John Sonashi, Jimmy Chapel Thomas, Nakoya Marathon Johnson, that so Nilobayana, and let you that Palme Pachewa, Palmejawa, that Jarwala Super Palmejawa, village in a Taji, so Simbaji, that Aratolas, which is Tantamia China, and let you Sandagi. Lake all and Jibayina or D. Garisana, Juba Sinji, Yamling shooting, so is single Lola. Neither is Juba Sinji, Yamling shooting, and let Della Tene, Sona Jashimutsungu, Palmage, Sona and shoot, Jimmy Chapa, Tomas, Nakoya Marathon Johnson, the nigger Sona shooting, Jimmy Chapa and Jongre, they non cotton yammer, Payon Taiwan. Or the Nijongre, that Monson Terrayo Mare. Monson was that scene D, so you didn't D down Navy Capitella, the Nigger Saint Chapel, so Mombajin is Jiva, and it's also Payo Mobujin John Jongi holiday, Yanayang, Sona Jinchoban Joma, the Nigger, Jiva Sinching and Yellen on Sen, or the Ane, Mobasinjala Mare.
So, verse 18, verse 19, I'm sorry. From that moment on, an uninterrupted stream of merits equal to the sky constantly arise even when one is asleep or distracted. Actually, yes, it is. Yeah. From the time that one adopted the spirits with the irreversible attitude for the sake of liberating limitless sentient beings, then verse 19. From that moment on, an uninterrupted stream of merits equal to the sky constantly arises even when one is asleep or distracted. So here the author is helping still continue help us to understand or to see the distinctions between these two forms of awakening mind, right? Like we talked about briefly before. Here and the author gives us a more explanation about and explain the differences with some detailed ideas. So essentially, like we talked about the awakening mind, it's in the preparational stage or vision mind. It's just aspirational, right? And for awakening, it's still at the sort of in the process of thoughts, vision, thinking, right? And it definitely generates a lot of merits, right? It is meaningful and helpful and positive, very beneficial, right? But when you compare to the actual bodhicitta, or the awakening mind, that is the aspiration of venturing, right? I mean, the spirits of venturing to spirits of venturing towards awakening. That means the physical action itself. The mind is no longer just a mind, but a mind, and the mind is being implemented. The determination, the thoughts, the wish, right? Ideas is already put into actual experiment. They implemented. So it has been implemented. It's on the like the person who is taking the actual journey. Then what is the greatest differences can be made, or the benefits you can, from the benefits point of view, you can see is that because that person, right, the person who is implementing the spirits of venturing towards awakening by the means of the practice of 6 great perfections, or 6 parajina paramita, and then that person who formerly we call the son of the Buddha, or son of the victor. And so then, because that person is who is physically, right, try to materialize its own aspiration, right? Aspiring and materialize the spirits of aspiring for awakening, meaning that to achieve the state of enlightenment, the Buddhahood itself, like we talked about it, by the means of physically engaging or undertaking the actual practice. That in summary is manifested or represented by the 6 perfections. So therefore, that person whose mind and action are now is combined. For that very reason, and even that person, right, for whatever reason or under particular circumstances, such as like fell asleep or being distracted, right? Being distracted under this particular circumstances. In both cases, as far as the collection of the merits are concerned, right, or the way which the actions towards attainment of Buddhahood is concerned, it doesn't slow down that person. It doesn't affect that person because if he fell asleep or she fell asleep or she been distracted because of the circumstances. The reason is not affected the person who is actually is undertaking the actual practice of awakening mind, is because his mind and his mind, even if he fell asleep or she is being distracted, but the force of the mind, the force of the determination of that individual's mind in terms of to attain the Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings is never reduced. So the continuity, the person who is in the state of sleep, a state of distraction, he or she, her mind, the force of the mind, the determination is still moving towards and leading that person towards the actual attainment of Buddhahood itself. So therefore, you can tell that whoever from the moment we implemented the Agile Buddha awakening mind and physically undertaking the practice of awakening mind self, and then there are the merits, the benefits they would appreciate, and the form of spiritual power he or she can possibly obtain is definitely much greater than the one who remain in the state of wishing or aspiring, the state of aspiring or thinking of, determined to do so, but haven't yet taken a formal action. Oh, here's the thing. So the author actually used the example of the sky. The sky, we can think about it, right? How limitless it is, and from the beneficial point of view, the form of benefits you can receive, and the power of the spirit, the spiritual power that one can appreciate, and the benefits that one can possibly get. So for those who the physically engaging in the actual awakening mind, and so the form of benefits and the power they can appreciate it can be compared to the size of the sky. That's all.
다들 되어라. 너는 타바당 지와 라당기는 시월에 마음의 생제 던지스 대선 사반이 지송 세운데 가르세운데 몸바 생제당 지와 생제 지역이 파용 인지기 야는 지바이나 파용 된다 진중이 요어데 안에 산지랑 송요래 그래서나 너는 타바당 지와 라당기는 시월에 세운데 안에 산지선바 라당기 산지라 시비 돌에 가르 송요르자네 몸바 생제다 지바 생제 산지 생제비 파용데 송요바데 시대 대서반이 지송 세단데 파용데 돈종 산지 장기 니스 송요데 산지 장기 송요데 이나 산지 가르 송바레스나 마수기 산지기 롱라 송바레스네 다 수순 주마지 등하서 지 킬링고하게 되게 난거요 가요 말 산지 장기장 마랑기 말은 시에서부터라 아니 장소기 샤바노로 스네토 송요 되니 다 몸바 신체당 주바 신체지 파용대 롱레 송바전도 마세 아니 파용대다 정어대 아주 르바 통에 하고도 르바 가르세용디 다 르비 르바대 가르스나 신제는지 라난자 살로년도 사나요 판도 상바 당等的소나包美단계라 신제를日没되어包都没把선도장日장用的包美的日本都把每次给现在的你梦醒的朋友的梦醒的朋友你开始知道다데 신제는지 라난자总的说살로년도 사나요 판도 상바 당等的总的说你다 이야기 종스조지래 다 종스조지잖아 아니 원체네 상지 갑들라 가르스 온지 다소 다 단다 대본 가르사 아니 지 진도 단다 부진도 아부디 가르스나 고랑기 아마라 천에 고랑 기세메와 아마 카미니바 아마라스라 칼랑로비와 드네 아마게베 신디베 추구지네 드네지네 타마텔라 코예라네 소속 도지라 파 지송지산에 아니 소속 도라 가리세나 미 현다지기 러바기 노로라네 자고 충군으로 지코네 아니 베 등에 뻗음에 반용스 버튼이 지코랑 통하네 통리 저런데 가르치에서는데 아랑 기랑기 아마라베 소소정기 아마라베 상다여고 맞지와 기세 맞지와 아마 카마니바 아마 심 축구지가 어떤지 몸부지 지워라 때네 아니 그래서나 말아디 디그 등에게 넘는데 말아 고용을 해서 배송이 다 고라베 시트 주전에 다이나 다 넘는데 등한테 말아요 다들 해그래 마야 소소기 아말아베 다 모로제니 용도 드리지에 다디 용어 인세가 선버티산지 고라라양 넘는데 고래네 지 고라다 지 작게 축군도 고네 넘는데 고라다나 통바리 다 고라다나 통원디서네 다 고가리 선버리서나 다디마송 다이나 등에디 라피 신전한지 라나점 라바게 넘는 그 등에 뻗음에 방용스버디 안에 신전 전달하지 마용 소스다 안에 선제 전달하니고 등에 차상 안에 말아 동나 용을소 안에 등에 뒤따네 안에 신전 생기 지다네 조비 상지주 공부 진행주 토벌 소스네 안에 과랑게 말한지아래 신체 잘한데 등하지 마용 소스네 디디기 살아 판세 지용도 있어네 판세 지워전지 그런게 당고가 남을 등하지 파다네 안에 그런 라바디 파자네 드니지는 도래 등이다 소디 몬신 집이야니 파요들이 좀 말해서 말이야
Verse 20, the Tathagata himself congenitally asserted this in the Subahu Pracha for the sake of beings who are inclined towards the lesser vehicle. A well-intended person who thinks, I shall eliminate the headache of sentient beings, bears immeasurable merits. And again, here the author is through another way, from different angle, and try to help us to understand the distinctions between the two forms of awakening. So the spirits of aspiring for awakening and the spirits of venturing towards the awakening. Like we see before, as far as the benefits is concerned, it can be as greater and as immeasurable as like the sky. Here, the author is using the different technique or methodology, and that teaches us to see the distinction between these two forms of awakening mind and more clearly. So first of all, the author used Buddha's own words, or in other words, he relying on the authoritative voice or scripture authority, which is the Buddha's own words, right? He's showing that the great benefits of the first form of mind, awakening mind, that is the spirits of aspiring for awakening, or wishing Bodhicitta. Here the author signed from the Buddhist sutra, the literature, and the Buddha's own words, the collection of Buddha's own words, and a specific the sutra, or the text where Buddha told the Bodhisattva, right, in the text called Subahu Pracha, says that where Buddha says the awakening mind, the spirits of aspiring for awakening mind, and if you're looking from the benefit point of view, and it can be as greater as like those who wish someone and just have a positive, very kind, loving kind mind, a wish that generates a very loving kind, compassionate mind. Wish that other beings can free from the problems such as like a headache. So it can gain, because that's the positive and kind and spiritually the very important and the meaningful and attitude and thoughts. So that thoughts can be transformed into a power, and then whereby the beings can help the beings can reduce the headache. That's the problem such as a headache. Well, we must say that to some extent, and we do rely on the Buddha's onwards, or we do need to refer to the scripture authority. But generally, by and large, in Buddhism, and the Buddha actually encouraged all his followers, whoever coming into the teachings, Buddha coming into the Buddha's teaching, or approach Buddha's teaching, and Buddha actually give the authority, the permission, even encourage the others, whoever coming to approach his teaching, encourage to approach his teaching by the means of examination, to questioning, not just take it and because Buddha said, but rather and by apply and the logical reasoning, so through the inquiry. So same thing here, and so we can see that even the author quotes from the scripture and show that the benefits of the spirits of aspiring for awakening is tremendous. It's has a great value, but we always have to remember that essentially in Buddhism, the inquiry, the critical analysis, and the examination is encouraged, is needed in order to fully understand the Buddha Dharma. So here, let me share the stories about this wishing somebody can free, have a positive, very compassionate and loving kind of mind or thoughts, wishing others can free from the headache, has a great value or has a great spiritual meaning. So the story goes back to during the Buddha's time. There were once upon there was a man and who sounds like it was occurred in some part of the North India, and there was a young man who disobeyed to his mother, and it's been a rude and a bad behavior, young man who against his mother, and made his mother is very afflicted and experienced lots of the mental stress. And finally, this young man actually abandoned her mother and went all the way to south part of India. And then in the south part of India, and coincidentally, he ran into the situation where he saw a man and is been kind of as a punishment, who wearing some kind of equipment on his head, or device like a thing on his head, and then because of that device or that equipment, this man's head is been squeezed, and or this man is experiencing tremendous pain and headache, and suffered tremendously. So this young man who then, out of great curiosity, asked this man who is suffering tortured by this device and on the top of a crown or on his head. The man told that I have to go through this. I'm experiencing this because I did terrible thing to my mother. I against her, and I made her very dismayed and caused her tremendous pain for her. So therefore, I was punished, and in results, then this is what I'm experiencing now. And so then this young man who, upon hear this man's response, he become very scared, and because he immediately thought, oh, I did exactly what this man did. I did all this obey to my mother. I have been very mean to her, and I even abandoned her and running away, and now I'm here. So just the thought about this, and this man immediately experienced a strong headache, as if her head is going to breaking. And at that very moment, and this young man had a strong wish, a positive, very kind mind, and he then said to himself, made a prayer. He says, "May the headache I'm experiencing now by I myself experiencing this headache now, may all sentient beings forever are suffering or experience the headache. And in this very moment, it can be freed from this pain that I experience just because I am experiencing headache now. May all their headaches can be transformed or become my own, whereby they can free from the headache. So by this very determined, loving, kind, compassion-driven thoughts, and then that man immediately freed the strong headache he experiencing. So this is the story. Okay. It's now we have both things. One is we have this the scripture authority, right? That is what the Buddha said in terms of what's the benefits to develop and to practice the spirits of awakening, the spirits of aspiring for awakening, right? What is the benefits when you ask this question? So we have a Buddha's own words confirms that there are tremendous benefits, right? And then through this story, it's kind of a personal experience, testimony. We also we further know that we don't need to only rely on the Buddha's own words, but from this individual's personal experience, we know that if someone just had this strong wish that may my headache can taken care of, all the others headache, free them from the headache they're experiencing, and then instantly that person was able to free himself from the headache. Then we know that this vision, bodhicitta, or the spirits of aspiring for awakening, it definitely has a tremendous benefits.
다 딘디기 신전의 제랄런자 살로냠도 살아야 판도 삼바도는 소나 범위 단지나 오다 디더위기 판생 저는 판생 지워 전제네 딘디기 파용 선지 무적은 중요나而新疆日没得话报的没把深度讲，日用的报没等日本都把没几个也是的。但这个三八战机朋友要去门中有呢，新疆日的没得话报的没把少人都讲，所以他说新疆日的没得话，这个拿出用给话，来到牛毛地方的双倍，扩了扩，接完了这样咱这都扩了，这个那做把这个呢就这个了是吧？那做把用给话，定这个定个的，就塞那三八几趟。但日常用的方面的日本都把没几个，从他说，但第一个星期日那样，用的包的没把呢，他对作为上级级用的得到级，的拖了这么容年的呢，所的了也是老人节呢，年龄节呢，朋友上级们这么就我的。什么国籍的有什么？
So, verse 22. What then of a person who desired to remove the incomparable pain of every single being and endure them with immeasurable good qualities? So based on the previous kind of a case study, right? First of all, we studied about by just merely relying on Buddha's own words. So the scriptural authority, we know that the practicing of the spirits of aspiring for awakening, or wishing Bodhisattva, it itself has such a great, tremendous value and tremendous benefits, right? And we also learned that the logical argument, the reason, right, by an individual person's experience is kind of how the powerful that's the spirits of the spirits of awakening, the spirits of aspiring for awakening. So we know that that person who was experiencing the headache, but because he had this tremendous, right, and compassionate thoughts, and wishing all others, whoever experienced the headache, can be taken care of by his own headache, that thereby he got relieved or freed himself from the pain. So similarly, right, now we use the same logic, the same reasoning, and look in more detail, right? And then we know that the wishing bodhicitta, or the spirits of aspiring forward awakening mind, and it definitely has inconceivable benefits. This is because here, as we just read, it says that if one person, right, who had thoughts, right, thought was, may all sentient beings who experience headache in this moment be able to are free because by the headache I am experiencing. So if that person did that, and then got such a benefit, that is, his pain made his pain gone, the headache gone, then what if, right? What if someone who physically engaging, right, physically and the approach to each individual, right, who desire to remove the incomparable, right, pains of every single being in all time, right? And so now you can imagine the benefits, what would be the benefits, right? Because that person had thought, now, had such benefits. And the person who engaging in the actual bodhicitta is who are the one who they're going to approach every single individual. It's not just in the mind, but physically doing so, right? Physically going to each individual and who to free themselves from the suffering caused by karma and caused by the afflictive emotions, so who are physically experiencing the sufferings of birth, sufferings of aging, sufferings of illness, and finally, and then also suffering experience the sufferings of death. If someone who is physically be there and personally address each individual he or she is running into, and to address their sufferings, and then you can imagine that the benefits, the size of the quantities of benefits, the qualities of benefits that the person who can achieve can receive is needless, or it doesn't require any further explanation. It's just it's logically and it's there. So therefore, so this comparison in it clearly shows that the both bodhicitta has a tremendous benefits, but the actual bodhicitta, or the spirits of venturing toward the awakening mind, is as far as the benefits is concerned, is definitely superior and inconceivable.
단지 추수 당보당 가마 지수도 다 아주 좋아지나. 안에 다 추수 제다 코난바즈에나 안에 속에 마도야 진짜 좋아해. 단다야 윤공 어도 전에 추수와 정말 저런 보지나. 안에 코난바즈라야 강을 쳐그래. 대이산에 안에 살에 요래. 대인디 다 진된 거 지난바즈 살에 망보 요래. 이 발성에는 추소대 라는 대원에 아주 치라 돈이지 아니 중지 치문데 아주 참하게 냠듯이 파서는 이제 라모지야다 아니 이제 로란제 제가 되게 국가로 받은 것을 참하네 손은 침부에 생도.
So it is 11 past 1. I think we should end today's discussion here. In fact, you folks been here since the morning, and so you were took in the class in the morning and had a busy morning. Now you also sacrifice your time and your leisure and come here and then take the afternoon class with me. I personally know that you all are busy, has all kinds of house related, family related business and works. So your life basically is not an easy one, and so form of life you're having is very busy, and the inspired of such a challenges, and I'm just amazed and admire and you very much, because you not only take the morning and class, you also take the afternoon class and try to understand Dharma and study Dharma, and specifically in the afternoon, and try to learn the Bodhisattva's way of the guidance to the Bodhisattva's way of life, and try to understand the Bodhicitta through the form of discussion, like conversational or discussions, and listen to me and my comments on the text, which I really appreciate, and I admire you and so much. I believe and through this kind of sacrifice and dedication and engagement, so we're not only, I believe we're not only very lucky, but we definitely can accumulate a tremendous merits. So yes, so the comments I can offer today is this much. But one thing I'd like to get your attention is that I personally feel that what I'm doing here is not like someone who is superior or higher above somewhere, and who is kind of lecturing and advising others who are inferior or down there. I'm high here. I don't have such a feeling, and I don't think that that's the thing, and that's what we are doing. What we are doing here is on the basis of a discussion, on the basis of kind of learning together. So my attitude is that we are working together, we are learning together, and so to try to understand what are the essential teachings of the Bodhisattva Avatara, or the guidance to the Bodhisattva's way of life. And because of this, for this reason, and while I'm commenting or sharing my interpretations of the commentary and the text with you, if you, whenever you have any questions or feel something is questionable, and please feel free to ask me, because after all, this is open discussion, right? So now, do you have any question for me, and from based on what we discussed today?
Okay, my question is, would you say as a student that we are venturing or aspiring, and as a, I'm just trying to understand, when do you venture into bodhicitta,
Okay.
When does that point come?
Monsentan Jisen Sibayina, Monsentan Jisen Sanibade, Tandazu, Sanji Simba Zuzilama to Yamare, Tobachimbe, Lamjilama Chena, and Senchi de Yamare. Ina that Tandi, Mazu, Nikandela, and it's all Karikachigiresina, Monsente. Monsente Karis only Zen Sinja Tanchi Tunda, and Zobe Sanji Compound. Senator Tona nearby. Oh, that's also an Egypt Tona, maybe Yansi answer and Kusela, Mombachi, Yana, and that was the Digi, Molam Janet, Digi, Mombi Simchi Chibayana, Degaresana, Mombi Simski or Tela. Tela Lama Shibi Nikas, Digi, 몸에 센스였더니 용기어데 이나 몸신 천이버디 용기어 말해 몸신 천이버디 선지 심벌질로도 용기어 말해 다 되니 몸에 센데 로디 양스 장바이나 참슬로 로게는 삼로그 슈디 체체 손의 냠네디 체체 손의 참슬로 다 나는 장내게 잠신칭 치的到个真的就上去公布特别基因上面，那单家等不起，那点那个就说发生的就罢了，你是老人家呢，对了年龄层你是需不呢？需不性格呢？上了台湾的也是的。
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I guess we have to know something in the little with a little detail the information with regard with respect to the spirits of aspiring for awakening mind or wishing bodhicitta. So one thing I guess we needed to know is that the actual, the authentic, right, the real spirits of aspiration for awakening, or wishing bodhicitta, is only the bodhicitta, bodhisattva has that quality. In other words, we ordinary person, prior to become an actual bodhisattva ourselves, the form of the spirits of aspiring for awakening that we practice actually is not authentic. It's not the real one. It's not the genuine wishing bodhicitta. Just like I said, the real, the genuine, the authentic, the wishing bodhicitta, the spirits for aspire and the spirits of aspiring for awakening, and is the qualities, but the bodhicitta is the one who possesses it. Then your question might be, say, so do we, ordinary person, or suppose we are, we haven't yet become a bodhisattva ourselves. In other words, we haven't yet attended the path of the Buddhist, the ground. So then, what is about the form of the spirits of aspiring for awakening? Wishing bodhicitta, we do have. Then what is the use of it? The use of our practice of the spirits of aspiring for awakening is that so we got to and fully understand the value, the quality, and the benefits and the meaning, the power, and of the bodhicitta ourselves. Then we needed to repeatedly throughout our day, right, constantly remind of us about these benefits, about the spiritual power, the form of spiritual power, about the value, about the meaning of bodhicitta, and repeatedly, right, and that's itself kind of arise in our mind over and over and over. Okay. And this repeatedly reminding of such a remarkable quality of awakening mind. Right? If you do this repeatedly, over and over, and then one day, right? One day you will naturally come to the arrive at the point where you say, "Oh, now I must take the formal action." You kind of, you can't you will feel that you can't help, but you have to take the formal action, the actual action of the practice of the 6 great perfections, the Parajana Paramitas, right? And you will take an oath, right? And you will formally engage in the actual practice of the 6 Parajana Paramita, and then you will not give up. So from that very moment, right? And then the which you can say it's the sign, or it's the moment, and you transformed your practice, right? You moved to, let's say, from the practice of wishing Bodhicitta, or the spirits of aspiring for awakening and practice, to the actual venturing towards the Bodhicitta. But prior to that is again, it is very beneficial, but you have to know that the ordinary person, or anyone who prior to become actual Bodhicitta, and then they doesn't possess the real, the genuine, authentic wishing Bodhicitta. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
When a bodhisattva is reborn, does he or she have to go through aspiring again, or go right to spirit, automatic?
Okay.
Have the spirit already.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And the 저들이 그래서는 이 샤추 상방문의 천리 바신 베나세 고니 고세기 판박 단체 베젤라 영주 지와실랭 들어와서 영시 지비 그때라 고연 영주 몬선이 고진인 직상 바다 니 루고레 아니 고 그팅아마라 고 샤추 상방의 샤추 상방 천리 바 차연 송사 고 랑진인 직상 그 냠나나 시제 바들이 시대스
다 저다 아주 선지 셈바 더소이나요. 저 상신기 여라네 조란 지네 조란게 상신기 다 야 해온디 저다 아주 세타의 선지세죠. 조란 준비되겠어. 세타의 선지들이 기본이 좀데 아니 선지들이 냠바메 세라네 고드네 연지요 말에 연창도고 말에 숨말 다리디는 상수 초란 딘디니켈라는 상생 개선의 주 고바조 조이더니 지바이나 양 지바 심어텔라 아니 소소 상세바랑 전에 로야지오 될라 그래서나 양지당 몰음지 항기 지워지기 원래 되게 상세도 다 양 상세라 가르스나 상세 초론 총이니께 돌아야 고라 가르스나 타반 만비를 있잖아 동도 된대요. 대가르스나 소소미 상세세 상지 셈데 란도이 시티네. 다 신제 타이와게 동도 된이 용사마래 아니 다 알아 집어라 아니 그죠. 타와지 도는 죽은도 세게 된디게 란도이 시티 집어이나 에 고라 마 타망질라 동도 그래. 된디 집어이나 고라네 타망글라나 동네 아니 시스 지원지마들라요. 짜도 고랑게 몬세지야다 아니 상지 세마지는 용기와 말. 얘네 뭐마게 상지 센지위 센지되기 바차데 고질라 요위 전지 고랑게 양체 상지 센지나요. 고랑질라 지 하오지. 대마도 비전데 상세 랑게 지와라가 토바다 간데 양지도 몰은 지항기 지위 상지 세바도 이나 고랑 지워지 지기 열때 대 상황에 비치어 말해. 고랑 상황 비치어래. 대인데 사대 고랑이 지켜네 상지 셈세데 냠창저 요 말해. 고 양지도 몰은 지항기 지워인 산에 지워지 말라 다라 고랑네 야 지용 산에 아니 상지 센도 지워고 고지라 여도 되네지래.
뭐야? 너서 네 볼음다 인지 그 지원하는 게 소람 진짜 소람하잖나 소람 총안을 왜 제아를 가는 거다.
대단다 초란 지론 건거 느꼈어 요래 아니 그 총에 느꼈어 용기 요래前面느꼈어 용기 요래 장 느꼈어 용기 요래 이나 딱고데 자주제 자 말고 상주 선박 농로 된디 지원 링크는 요래 초란 총기 느꼈어 다양 된디 지원 링크 리뉴 지원기 진로 된디 용기 요래
Yeah. Also, it's a great question. I liked it a lot. So let's say, first of all, let's talk something in general. So generally speaking, the Bodhisattva, there's Bodhisattvas can be divided into the based upon the form of the bhumi or the ground, and or the states of the achievement, and there are 5 of them, right? So, and the 5 paths, like the paths of the collection, the paths of preparation, and the paths of seeing, and the paths of the meditation, and the path of normal learning. Okay. So in the case of the first Bodhisattva, group of Bodhisattva, which is the Bodhisattva who is on the stage of the collection of the path of collection, right? And so here it's more relevant to the ordinary the practitioner. So we have to know that again within the first path, the path of collection. Again, within that the path is based upon the levels of accomplishment, levels of advancement, the achievement. The Bodhisattvas again divided into the small, the individual Bodhisattvas of a small being who belong to the path of collection, and the Bodhisattva medium Bodhisattvas who is belong to the path of collection, and then the greater Bodhisattvas who is on the path of collection. So those are 3 individual Bodhisattvas within the underground or in the levels of the first sort of entry level of Bodhisattva path. That's the path of collection, right? And so you have those 3: the smaller, medium, and greater Bodhisattva. Within that 3 Bodhisattvas, suppose someone who accomplished a great deal, whose level of achievement or whose accomplishment of the bodhicitta practice is very solid, okay? And very successful, then he or she, after they die, then he or she can, once return and or they're reborn, and then because of the previous trainings and practice or advanced stages of the practice, and then they are what we call the propensity, right? The imprint, the form of imprint, that's the propensity or the predispositions, which are already imprint onto their consciousness, their mind, so therefore they can naturally continue. That's because they're very strong, and their bodhicitta or the experiences of the bodhicitta practice is advanced, even though they are still in the path entry level, the path of collection, and within that path. The group, that individual is belong to the small, the capacity or levels of achievement. It's a small group of small being. However, and either is from small or medium or the great. And there are bodhisattvas who may not, whose practice may not that solid and highly advanced. But because his or her practice of compassion and the prayer is so advanced, and they are very advanced in the form of the practice of prayer and the compassion. So therefore, after he or she die, and then by the power of compassion, they have achieved or accomplished, and all the prayers and they have made, and then depend upon those two, either the compassion or prayer or both, and then they can return and once they're reborn and they return to the world, they can continue to pursuing the advanced level of bodhicitta. But exceptions can be made. There are times and bodhisattvas who are in this entry level and who, due to the obstacles or some other setbacks or problems, and at the moment before he or she die, and they might have a mind or some kind of a very strong, what you call it, the thoughts, and the thought basically say, oh, I just can't do it. It is no way for me to taking care of all sentient being and or do everything for the benefits or attend the Buddha for the sake of all sentient being. And so I just can't do it. But if you prior to die had such thoughts, and then they could lose that cut off from the continuity of their own bodhisattvas the practice, or they cannot continue to pursue in the advanced level of awakening mind. But this individual, right, and they were reborn, and but because the other side of the practices, such as like realizations, are so strong and advanced, so therefore he or she and can have the better chance and easily can pick up the spirits of aspiring and for awakening mind, can continue to pursuing the and awakening. So that's I can say. Also, we have to know that those who can, even though they are bodhicitta, is not a solid and absolute compared or advanced enough. However, because of their practice of compassion and the prayer is so powerful, and then when they die, they're not dying, and their death is not caused by they die, but their rebirth is not caused by the afflictions and the karma, but rather is self-determined. So in other words, they can choosing and the form of a life, a form of a rebirth, and so therefore those who and the advanced in the practice of compassion and prayer, and they can reborn and come back and can continue pursuing the adventure in awakening. Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Now we say the closing prayer on page number 88.
Oh, wonderful. That's I forgot one point. Yes, so those who have in their mind thoughts that, oh, I cannot do that, this is too hard, and then they will lose their the bodhicitta, and then they will fail from the path of Mahayana, and then return to the lower vehicle path. But again, because they're advanced in the the inside aspect of the practice. So therefore, when they're reborn, and then they have a much better chance to pick up the bodhicitta practice. Yeah. Sorry. Wonderful. Oh, 对，是，当然不走。